Let us pray. Almighty God, the creator and ruler of heaven and earth, we beseech thee to inspire and guide all our actions so that we may always walk in the path of justice, love, and charity to one another. Help us with thy grace to do only those things that promote the unity, peace, happiness, and prosperity of Nigeria in general and Lagos State in particular. Amen. Good afternoon, distinguished colleagues. You are all welcome to today's sitting. Let us go through the votes and proceedings of Monday, 31st August 2020. Page 206. Honorable Olowo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My colleague, good afternoon. Mr. Speaker, I told you I'll be traveling, and I got your concurrence. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, Mr. Clark, please do the needful. 207. Page 208. Page 209. I have examined the votes and proceedings of Monday, 31st August 2020 and approve as here granted. Any message from the governor?
Right, Honorable Speaker, distinguished honorable members, there is no message from Mr.
Any other announcement?
Mr. Speaker, sir, there is no announcement.
Petition?
None, Mr. Speaker,
Matter
sir.
of urgent public importance? None. Personal explanation? None. Reports? None. Business of the day? Honorable Rotimi Olowo.
Mr. Speaker, I stand before you to lay report of the Committee on Finance on the Lagos State Lotteries and Gaming Authority 2019. I so lay.
Majority Leader. Honorable Naim.
Right, Honorable Speaker, distinguished colleagues, laying of report of the 7-man ad hoc committee on the Lagos State House of Assembly Legislative Service Commission Amendment Bill 2020. I so lay.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues, listed for second reading is House of Assembly Bill number 13. With the kind permission of Mr. Speaker, may I humbly move that Lagos State Transport Sector Reform Amendment Bill 2020 be read for the second time. I so move.
Honorable Tobo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to second the motion as moved.
All in favor say aye. Those against nay. The ayes have it. Mr. Clerk.
Right, Honorable Speaker, distinguished honorable members, with the kind permission, I'll read for the second time a bill for a law to amend the Lagos State Transport Sector Reform Law 2018. Thank you, sir.
The chairman.
Good afternoon, Mr. Speaker, sir. Honorable colleagues. Today, you would recall that the Lagos State Transport Sector Reform Law 2018 was passed at the 8th Assembly, and the need at the moment was the reason why it was passed. Mr. Speaker, this law, there is a need for amendment as seen by the executive, and they have sent forward a bill to amend the law. Mr. Speaker, the law is to help the transport sector in Lagos State. If we recall, the themes agenda of the governor had the transport and traffic solutions as the first letter of his manifest. Mr. Speaker, this bill is to amend sections of the law. It's a 14-page bill with 53 amendments as of the moment. The merits are not far. Mr. Speaker, the law seeks to address in section 16B. It seeks to address that unregistered vehicles, usage of unregistered vehicles on our roads is punishable by law. Section 27A has given LSHA the powers to arrest and fine offenders who are found wanting or have committed traffic offenses in the state. Section 28 also gives protection to road users, whereby the provision of visible lane markings, traffic light signals, and traffic signs are being installed on our roads in Lagos State. Section 138 of the law also gives LAMATA the powers to regulate, which has been the bone of contention, where LAMATA becomes the regulator and LBSL, which is Lagos State Bus Services Limited, becomes the service provider within the state and operation. Mr. Speaker, this section 138 gives LAMATA the powers to regulate. At the same time, also introduces the bus reform, whereby LAMATA will have private sectors, individuals also get investing in the bus sector, which by creating the bus operating company, where we have private investors also invested in the transport sector. It also gives LAMATA the powers to regulate fares for all operating buses within the state. Mr. Speaker, if you check section 45 to section 53, there has been a deletion. They deleted the law, and I think it is rational because it supports the control of trailers and long vehicles and articulated vehicles on our road. Section 46 also controls motorcycles and regulates tricycles on our road, while Section 47, removal of abandoned vehicles on our road. Mr. Speaker, these are the few things that I've seen in the law, and I think there's the need for us to also look into the law where it requires the Lagos State Parking Authority, where we have agents, which can be unions and all other registered agencies within the state and the transport sector. Section 33, deletion of Section 33 also removes the board of the LSHA. And I think if the board is being removed, the Section 36 to Section 41 of it would not be necessary. Deletion of Section 45 to 53, like I said earlier on, and also removal and replacement of Section 29 that established the advisory board for LSHA. Mr. Speaker, I therefore enjoin my colleagues as well that this amendment bill should be passed for the second reading. Thank you, sir.
Honorable Olowo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My colleague, good afternoon. Just to buttress what Honorable Chairman just espoused. Mr. Speaker, the amendment basically is to strengthen the principal law. It borders on protection of the road users, wherein before now, road markings are not really feasible on our roads. And in some situations, some last mile guys will be looking around, looking for people that will be going one way. It protects, the amendment protects road users by making the authority to have feasible road signs that will be able to protect the road users. In addition to that, prior to now, Mr. Speaker, many dealers, when they import their cars, they can use it for 3, 4, 5 months. Some of them will abuse it. And this increased or it compromises security in Lagos State. I think with this law, if you drive a vehicle that is not actually numbered or registered, it becomes an offense, and I think that's going to strengthen our security. Mr. Speaker, I looked at the principal law in the course of checking this amendment. I discovered the principal law required overhauling as well. Because in some of the principal laws, I think issues about on sharing between the local government and the state is a bit awkward. While the state, through its collection agents, will collect 40%, 40% will go to CRF, and you have only 20% to local government. And we know that in the current structure, bulk of the bus stops that belong to local government.
Sorry, Honorable, which collection are you talking about?
Lagos State Parking Authority. Okay. In the principal law, that was what is there. But now with this amendment, I'm only seeking your concurrence that the committee should look at the law in its entirety in such a manner that you have a perfect law at the end of the day. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Honorable. Honorable Shiloko. Oh, your light is off. Honorable Agumbiade.
Mr. Speaker, no doubt this bill intends to strengthen the law as it is presently, and particularly regulates traffic on highways and roads within Lagos State. But there are some of these provisions that gives cause for concern. Mr. Speaker, for instance, Section 6, causing death by dangerous driving. Mr. Speaker, the penalty stipulated here is 10 years of custodian sentencing. 10 years of custodian sentencing. Sorry, custodian, not non-custodian. I was thinking it's non-custodian. It's okay, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, also, I see a lot of provisions that we have here. These are provisions that ordinarily will be more effective if we overhaul our enforcement, enforcement unit of traffic offenses or traffic law. Most of these things, Mr. Speaker, unless we overhaul our enforcement methods, will still remain the same because of means of monitoring. There are so many provisions here, Mr. Speaker, which are very laudable in the sense that it is now penalizing some of the things we have taken for granted on our roads, like concealing your plate number, like using plate numbers that are not registered. This is very frequent on our roads, and it is dangerous because people with questionable characters, can disguise using such unregistered plate numbers and concealing plate number. But when that is done frequently, who is to penalize? We all know what happens on our roads. So I would say that as good as this law is, this bill is, to strengthen our law, we must, like Honorable Olowo said, the Committee on Transportation, when this matter goes for public hearing, they should look into, and they are writing the report to the House, they should look into the law in totality, as we know that the practice is not that the bill that comes into the House may not go out the way it comes. We have the power to look more into it and do more critical. But I'm sure that with this, Mr. Speaker, that we have, and with the effort that the committee, trusting the committee to put in, we will have movement of our road, regulation of traffic on our road more enhanced, and road users can have best times on our road. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's a very good.
Honorable Tomo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Well, I am in total support of the review of this law, knowing fully of the mess that is going on our road. So the bill is timely. But, Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues, there were some observations that one can raise when looking at this bill. Like the case of attaching plate numbers. We are aware that there were security numbers that were given to even MHR, executives, and the parliamentarians, even the law enforcement officers that were given to them. So if such vehicles were attached to, if such plate numbers were attached to vehicles, there were no exceptions in this law. So we need to look at that area. Then we must be wary of the activities of last man. There were some sections that give them power to arrest. And if you give them power to arrest, like section, sorry, Mr. Speaker, section 5, where they say reckless driving. A vehicle turned by the right without giving consideration. If there were no evidence, it becomes so difficult. And people can just arrest with a view, apart from exhausting, making people to suffer unduly. If you look at section C, section 5 subsection C, if you look at section 5 subsection E, if you look at section 5 subsection I, you will discover that this will be taken care of at the public hearing. And if you look at O of that section, where they tell people, if you are driving, you can't buy drinks or other things. But what about if you are not driving? Some of the opinion that buying on the highway is prohibited, rather than saying the person driving. So if you are not the one driving, that means you can afford to buy on the highway. So I want us to look at this. But by and large, it's a good, a welcome development that will look at this holistically and make the road more friendly with our people. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Lagos State Transport Sector Reform Amendment Bill 2020 is hereby committed to House Committee on Transportation to report back in 2 weeks. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the 7-man ad hoc committee for the amendment of Lagos State House of Assembly Service Commission Bill 2020 has turned in his report. Mr. Speaker, the report is ready for presentation. To do the presentation, may I move that the House resolve to committee of the whole? Mr. Speaker, I so move.
Honorable Nureni.
Right, Honorable Speaker, I write a second motion as moved.
All in favor say aye. Those against nay. The ayes have it.
Okay, sir. Report of the 7-man ad hoc committee on the Lagos State House of Assembly Legislative Service Commission Amendment Bill 2020, 1.0, Preamble. The House, at its plenary session of Tuesday, 11th August 2020, set up a 7-man ad hoc committee to consider the Lagos State House of Assembly Legislative Service Commission Amendment Bill 2018, passed in April 2019 and was not attended to by Mr. Governor. The committee was mandated to reflect the latest development on the full autonomy granted to the state legislature in the country. In line with Order 12, Procedure on Bills, Rule 93, outstanding bills from the preceding assembly of the harmonized rules and standing orders of the House, which states member bills passed by the preceding assembly and forwarded to the governor for assent, but for which assent or withholding thereof was not communicated before the end of the tenure of the assembly, the House may resolve that such bill, upon being regazetted or clean copy circulated, be reconsidered in committee of the whole without commenced de novo. Consequently, the committee engaged the chairman, commissioners, secretary, and administrative staff of the Lagos State House of Assembly Service Commission on the subject. 2.0, attendance. Honorable Adams MB, Honorable Elliott.
Can you please go to 4.0?
Okay, sir. Observations. 4.0. The invited stakeholders commended the House for its proactiveness and expressed the need to amend the existing law to accommodate new development. The following observations were raised for the consideration of the committee. Section 4, tenure of office of commission members be amended. 2, Section 5, cessation from office, subsection 1 be amended and redrafted. 3, Section 8, secretary to the commission be amended and redrafted. 4, Section 10, subsection 2 with the side note, powers and functions of the commission. Create a new section 2D to read, in exercising powers to make appointments or exercise disciplinary control over persons, the commission shall not be subjected to the direction or control of any authority or person. 5, renumber subsection 2D as new subsection 2E. 6, section 22 and 20 be renumbered as 20 and 22 accordingly. 7, in line with what operates at the various commissions, the clerk of the House should be a statutory member of the National Council on Establishment. 8, the clerk of the House should be given the responsibility of issuing warrants to the State Assembly Service Commission instead of the Accountant General. And 9, the Commission can either have its own Oracle Structural Center database for the payment of salaries for honorary members, commissioners, and staff of both the Assembly Commission, or decide to still allow the State Treasury Office to help in paying it, pending the time the one for the Commission will be put in place. 5.0, recommendation. Based on the aforementioned observations, the committee hereby recommends the following. 1, Section 2, subsection 1, 3, and 4, with the side note, composition of the commission of the principal law is drafted and as follows. Section 2, 1, the commission shall comprise of a chairman and 4 other members, who shall, in the opinion of the Speaker, be persons of unquestionable integrity and shall represent the 5 divisions of the state. 3, the Speaker of the House shall, after consultation with the principal officers of the House, appoint the chairman and other 4 members of the commission. And 4, The appointment of the chairman and members of the commission shall be ratified by a simple majority of members of the House present and voting. Section 4. We decide note tenure of office of members of the commission be redrafted to read, the chairman and members of the commission shall hold office for a time of 5 years and may be reappointed for a further time of 5 years only. 3. Section 5. We decide note cessation of office of the principal law be redrafted as follows. 5. The chairman or any member of the commission shall cease to hold office if the chairman or member A is removed from office by the speaker acting on the address supported by a simple majority of the membership of the House, praying that the member is removed for inability to discharge the functions of the office. B. Resigns the appointment by giving 1 month notice in writing addressed to the speaker. C. Is unfit or unable to discharge the functions of the office, either by reason of infirmity or mental incapacity. D. Is convicted of a crime. E. Becomes bankrupt or and F. Is guilty of serious misconduct or dereliction of duties. 4. Section 6, subsection 1 and 2, we decide note filling of vacancies of the principal law be redrafted as follows. 1. Where a vacancy occurs in the membership of the commission, the speaker shall notify the House and shall within 1 month fill the vacancy. And 2. The speaker shall, in line with subsection 1 above, fill the vacancy after due consultation with the principal officers of the House. 5. Section 8, subsection 1 and 2, we decide note secretary to the commission of the principal law be drafted as follows. 1. There shall be for the commission a secretary who shall on appointment have the status, rights, and privileges of a permanent secretary in the public service of the state. 2. The secretary who shall be a director cadre shall be appointed by the speaker after due consultation with the principal officers of the House and ratified by a simple majority present and voting. 3. In the event of any vacancy in the position of the secretary, the acting secretary will be appointed by the speaker after due consultation with the principal officers of the House. 4. The acting secretary shall act in that capacity for a period not exceeding 6 months or as may be decided by a resolution of the House pending the appointment of a substantive secretary. 6. Delete section 10, subsection 1A and B of the principal law. 7. Create a new section 10 with the side note acting clerk to read as follows. Acting clerk of the House, after due consultation, where there is a vacancy in the office of the clerk, the speaker shall appoint the acting clerk of the House after due consultation with the principal officers, provided that no person shall act in the office of the clerk of the House for a period exceeding 6 months, except by a resolution of the House. 8. Create a new section 11 with the side note powers and functions of the commission. Subsection 1, A to D, and 2 to read 1. Power of the commission shall include power to A. Promote, transfer, and appoint A. Promote, transfer, and confirm appointments of persons employed by a commission. B. Dismiss and exercise disciplinary control over such person holding or acting in such offices. C. Formulate and implement guidelines. And D. Perform such other duties and functions as are necessary or expedient for the discharge of its functions under this law. And 2. Nothing in this law shall preclude the creation of more departments, units by the House as the need arises. 9. In the principal law, section 10, subsection 4, now section 11, subsection 3, line 2, after the word person, insert S. 10. In the principal law, renumber section 10, subsection 5, 6, 7, and 8 as a new subsections 11, subsection 4, 5, 6, and 7 accordingly. 11. Also create a new section 11, subsection 8 to read 8. For the purpose of carrying out its function under this law, the Commission may subject to the Land Use Act acquire, purchase, or lease any interest in land or other property and equip and maintain same subject to the approval of the House. Do this in addition to existing provision in old section 10, the number accordingly. 12. In section 18, now section 19, we decide note staff of the Commission be redraft as subsection 1 to read 1. The Commission shall, after due approval from the Speaker, appoint such persons as may be necessary to enable it to carry out its function under the provisions of this law. 13. Create a new section 22 with the side note, mode of appointment of the clerk, to read: 1. The Speaker, after consultation with the principal officers, shall appoint the clerk, and the person so appointed shall be presented to the House for confirmation by a simple majority of members present and voting. 2. The Commission shall issue the person so confirmed by the House a letter of appointment. 14. Create a new section 23 with the side note, cessation of office of the clerk, to read: A. The clerk of the House shall cease to hold office if the clerk, A, is removed from office by the Speaker acting on an address supported by a simple majority of the membership of the House, praying that the clerk is removed for inability to discharge the functions of the office. B. Resigns the appointment by giving 1 month notice in writing addressed to the Speaker. C. Is unfit or unable to discharge the functions of the office either by reason of infirmity or mental incapacity. D. Is convicted of a crime. E. Becomes bankrupt. F. Is guilty of serious misconduct or dereliction of duties. Or G. Has reached the retirement age in the public service. H. Retires after the completion of two consecutive terms in office. 15. In the principal law, section 21, now section 24, with the side note, tenure of office of the clerk, be redrafted to read: The House of Assembly shall have its own oracle data for the payment of salaries, pensions, other remunerations. Sorry.
Oh, you have jumped page 5. I've jumped page 5. The clerk shall hold office for a period of 4 years.
Sorry, sir. Okay. Yes. The clerk shall hold office for a period of 4 years and may be eligible for reappointment for a further time of 4 years only. 16. Create a new section 25 with the side note, statutory members of the National Council on Establishment, to read: the clerk of the House, 2. The secretary to the Commission shall be a statutory members of the National Council on Establishment. 17. In the principal law, section 22, now section 26, with the side note, deputy clerks, be drafted to read: 1. There shall be for the House 5 deputy clerks as listed below. 1. Deputy clerk, legislative matters. 2. Deputy clerk, legislative drafting and legal services. 3. Deputy clerk, publications. 4. Deputy clerk, administration and human resources. And 5. Deputy clerk, finance and accounts. 2. A deputy clerk shall: A. Be appointed by the Speaker after consultation with the principal members of the House, who shall be a director cadre from the department of the House. B. Hold office on such times and conditions as may be applicable in the state legislative service. C. The Commission shall issue the person so appointed by the House a letter of appointment. 3. The deputy clerks shall generally perform duties as may be assigned to them by the clerk of the House. 4. The deputy clerks shall have the status, rights, and privileges of the permanent secretary in the public service of the state. 18. In the principal law, section 23, with side note, cessation of office of the clerk, be deleted. 19. Create a new section 27 with the side note, cessation of office of the deputy clerk, to read: the deputy clerk of the House shall cease to hold office if the deputy clerk, A, is removed from office by the Speaker acting on an address supported by a simple majority of the membership of the House, praying that deputy clerk is removed for inability to discharge the functions of the office. B. Resigns the appointment by giving 1 month notice in writing addressed to the Speaker. C. Is unfit or unable to discharge the function of the office either by reason of infirmity or mental incapacity. D. Is convicted of a crime. E. Becomes bankrupt. F. Is guilty of serious misconduct or dereliction of duties. Or G. Has reached the retirement age in the public service of the state. 20. In the principal law, section 24, now section 28, of with the side note, funds of the Commission, subsection 1, be amended and redrafted to read: there shall be established a fund for the commission, and provision for the fund shall be made in the annual budget of the Lagos State House of Assembly. 21. Also in section 24, now section 28, create a new section 3 with the side note payment of salaries to read the House of Assembly shall have its own Oracle database for the payment of salaries, pensions, other remunerations, and allowances payable to members and employees of the House of Assembly. 22. In the principal law, section 25, now section 26, line 2, delete Ministry of Economic Planning and Budget and replace with Clerk of the House. 23. Section 27 of the principal law be deleted. 24. Section 29 of the principal law, line 1, delete the figure 27 and replace with 28. 25. In the principal law, section 30, subsection 2, C, line 4, delete 29, subsection 1 and replace 29. 26. Section 30, power to make regulations, subsection 3, line 3, delete the figure 1. 27. Section 31 of the principal law, interpretation will be amended by deleting the word director and replaced with the phrase director. Director means an officer on director cadre in the public service, in the public civil service of the state. 28. In the principal law, section 30 with the side note, citation and commencement, delete the number 30 and replace with 32. 29. The schedule to the principal law be deleted and replaced as follows. Schedule. Directorate units of the House of Assembly. 1. Office of the Speaker. 2. Office of the Clerk. 2.1a. Protocol unit. B. Internal audit unit. C. Transport unit. D. Medical unit. And E. Procurement unit. 2.2. Legislative Matters Directorate. 2.3. Legislative Drafting and Legal Services Directorate. 2.4. Publications Directorate. 2.5. Administration and Human Resources Directorate. 2.6. Finance and Accounts Directorate. 2.7. Public Affairs Directorate. 2.8. Budget, Planning and Research Directorate. 2.9. Works Directorate. 3.0. Sergeant at Arms Directorate. 3.1. Library Services Directorate. 3.2. Lagos State House of Assembly Budget and Research Office. 30. Renumber all sections, subsections, paragraphs, and subparagraphs accordingly. 6.0. Conclusion. The committee expresses its gratitude to Mr. Speaker and members for the opportunity given to carry out the assignment. In the same vein, the appreciation also goes to the Clerk of the House and the Secretariat for ensuring the timely completion of this assignment. Thank you, Honorable Adams, MB, Eti-Osa 1.
Honorable Akonde.
Mr. Speaker, I urge to move that the report as
The report be adopted,
be adopted for debate.
Who has the law? Honorable Tomu.
I second as moved.
All in favor say aye. Those against nay. The ayes have it. Honorable Olowo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I really commend the committee for a job well done. If you look at the report, especially when you look at the one that talks about having deputy clerk, deputy matters, deputy clerk publications and the likes, it is very good, and I think it's in good faith. It's going to encourage our own here, and it's going to be a form of reward for service. And when you look at that with what is happening in the real civil service, you appreciate the fact that they too need to be moved up, and having permanent secretary status is a welcome idea. Ditto all other ones that borders on stating how they will relate and their terms of office. Mr. Speaker, more importantly is the fact that in tandem with the autonomy granted by Mr. President, all we have here is basically in terms with that House of Assembly should be indeed autonomous in all ramifications, and this recommendation actually lay credence to that. So once again, I want to commend the committee and ask my colleagues to give this a quick passage so that we can have our own service commission that is truly independent. Thank you.
Honorable Okola.
This report is a very sound one. I just want to observe, if we go to page 3, Roman, this says, the secretary who shall be a director cadre shall be appointed by the Speaker after due consultation with the principal officers of the House and ratified by a simple majority present and voting. Here, the underlining word is the director. Where in the entire House we are unable to find a full director, what happens? If, for instance, if we have deputy directors and assistant directors in the House, and we don't have a level 17 officer who is a full...
Says Director Keda.
Director Keda, okay. Okay.
So yes.
Thank you. Let's pass.
Yeah, Honorable Ogundimu.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I still want to commend the committee for... Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I still want to commend the committee for a job well done. Well, I think this is still in line with the work that has been done earlier on, considering the autonomy of the House, as rightly stated by Honorable Olowo. I just want a clarification on the last page, under the schedule directorate/unit of the House of Assembly. Look at that is number 29, right, Roman figure 29. I look at the 2.8 and 3.2. What I want to ask if there is any line of distance between 2.8 budget planning and research directorate and 3.2 Lagos State House of Assembly Budget Research Office. I don't know if there is any way the two could work together or they can work separately and they can still be distinct. Thank you.
Honorable Oshun.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, Mr. Speaker, this is a comprehensive report, and I think it's good to go. But I just want a bit of clarification on something, sir. On page 3, where we have the chairman and members of the commission shall hold office for 5 years.
Page
3, sir.
What number?
Sir?
What number, page 3?
It started from the recommendation of 50501, and I think this 502.
502.
50, subsection 2, where we have the chairman and members of the commission shall hold office for a term of 5 years.
Okay.
And may be reappointed for a further term of 5 years only. Now, going to page 5, sir, where it says the clerk shall hold office for a period of 4 years. I was thinking, sir, in recent times, what we've always been doing is 5 years. I was wondering why can't we have 5 years for the clerk, number one. And coupled with the fact that we agree that the clerk is the equivalent of a PS. I want to think that, in most cases, PS don't have time limit, but even if you are saying the clerk should, I was thinking...
Sorry, you see the mic or your voice?
I don't want to, sir. Maybe I should move back a bit.
Okay.
So my suggestion, Mr. Speaker, is that the clerk, if we can have 5 years tenure, I think at least that would be uniformity with the commission, instead of having 5 for the commission and having 4 for the clerk. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Honorable Tobo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Well, I have gone through this report. It's a good report. At least if you look at it, it gives our staff opportunity to move higher along the strata, and it makes the center not to be too competitive because everybody wants to get to the peak of his career. And what really interests me most is the appointments of the acting clerk. And when it's no more there, the speaker appoints, subject and in consultation with the principal officers. And if you look at the deputy clerk, in the old law, it was the clerk that appointed the deputy speaker. And in that case, if the clerk did not like the face of an officer from any of the units, the clerk will never recommend such person. But where the speaker now look at the merits, the capability of each of the staff working with him, and pick deputy speakers in the directorates in consultation with the principal officer and subject to the simple majority, I think it will enhance performance. It will make people to work without any encumbrances and without necessarily have to lick the boots of whoever the clerk is. So I feel this is a good one and it's good to go. Thank you, sir.
Who is that at the back? Honorable Ayode.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, sir. It's me, sir. Well, Mr. Speaker and my colleague, let me also quickly comment on this the report concerning the section 8, subsection 2. We have number 5, page 3, sorry. Number 5 in that number Roman figure 5, number 2.
All right.
Where it read like the secretary who shall be a director shall be appointed by the speaker after the consultation with the principal officers of the House and ratified by simple majority present and voting. Mr. Speaker, to me and my colleagues, I believe the position of the secretary of a board, in as much they are a civil servant, I think we need to be careful putting such a thing in a law that the member should be voting for such a person before he become a secretary of a board.
I agree.
So I think we should look in that direction, sir. Then going to page 5 also, the issue of the clerk, that a clerk will be using a 4-year term in office and another opportunity of appointing him as a Mr. Speaker. Also, we need to be careful also, because at the end of the day, if a civil servant will not be using Yasin and Aya on each,
They will not be doing what?
they will be using Yasin and Ayas on each one of themselves. Because let me cite example of what is happening now in civil service, because this bill is going to be a pure civil service issue. Presently, Mr. Speaker, if you see our HOS now, he have opportunity of spending about almost 12 years in service more with his age and his time in the service. Such a thing can happen here, where we have a clerk that will be maybe 50 years old and he started his job at the earlier and having a level 17 in that 50 years old. Sir, Mr. Speaker, and we are appointing him for 2 terms. At the end of the day, if another person get it to level 17, when I'm convincing myself, at the end of the day, we may the clerk may use 8 years. After using that 8 years, he can't continue anymore. At the end of the day, we'll come and sit down beside Mr. Otunde, watching the another clerk. So we need to look that thing critically, so we shouldn't cause confusion within themselves. So that's why I'm referring that they should not be using Yasin and Kursiu for themselves. So, and if you go critically to another section 5 also in page 3, where where is that again? We mentioned the deputy clerk shall be generally perform the duty of a permanent. Where is that? The deputy clerk shall have the status, right, and privilege of permanent secretary. No, we can't be in level 17 competing. I mean, level 15 competing with level 17. They don't take it easy with themselves, civil servants. Even level 15, counting yourself with level 16, they won't agree with themselves. You can't be in level 16, say you are a deputy clerk, now enjoying the privilege of Mr. Clerk. No. So, if you want to be director, you are a director. We may call it a deputy clerk, but in the service, it's a director, it's a director. No any deputy permanent secretary. There will be a faction and a quarrel in their working duty. So I think we should be careful and study this our report carefully before we pass it into the final stage. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Chairman, can you respond to?
Thank you very much, sir. Honorable Low, thank you very much. You commended the committee. Thank you. Yeah, Honorable Okla, talk about Director Keda. I think Speaker has been able to clarify the area. Thank you. Honorable Goodimu, talk about clarification on 2.8 and 3.2. Okay. Sorry. Yeah, there are two different things. We are talking about budget, planning, and research directorate. So they are in charge of budget, planning, and research. But when we are talking about this Lagos State House of Assembly budget and research, they are meant to go for research. What they do purely there is research on how the procedures for our research of our budget will look like. So I think there are two different things. They are not the same thing at all. Honorable Oshun, talk about the commissions, well, 5 years and the clerk 4 years. Well, I think it's still okay like that. 4 years and we'll still give another 4 years. I think it's okay. We can leave the commission for 5 years. Thank you, sir. Then Honorable Tobun, well, you talk about the clerk and deputy clerk. Okay, well, it is well noted, sir. Thank you, sir. Then Honorable Layode, sir. You talk about the secretary to the commission. Well, I think we have the most experienced lawmaker here, the best legislator of the year. Speaker is there would assist me to. Thank you, sir. You talk about the deputy clerk as well. I think Speaker will use the experience to assist. Thank you, sir. Then, okay, I think that's all for now,
All
sir.
right,
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, from the question raised by Honorable Godimu and answered by the chairman, there are two different things. Why the 2 points what? The two, where is it? Okay, 2.8 has responsibility for the budget of the house and every other thing that has to do with the house. The 3.2 is talking about budget and research office that will be dealing with the state's budget, which will be carrying out research, seeking for information to support the committee of the house. So the scope of duties are quite different. Why the first one is limited to the house, about the annual budget of the house. The other one will treat the state budget to assist the committee, all the committees of the house in performing their oversight functions and other things. As we agreed on it. Because the issue of the clerk, either spending 4 or 5 years after appointment or overstaying, there are so many factors surrounding it. We know that the civil service, rule says at 60, either 30 years in service or when you attain age of 60. It's 35, okay, 35 or age of whichever that comes first. So it's been very difficult whenever we treat the House of Assembly Service Commission bill, but it is an appointment. It's a political appointment. It's not really the career cadre thing. So it depends. If you are agreeing on 4 years, fine. It will be 4 years. And if it says 5 years, it will be 5 years. But for now, we have been using 4 years in office. It depends on the age of the clerk. So whichever that comes first, like observed by Honorable Layode, where we have a young man or woman who attains the position of the clerk. Well, after the appointment, there's nothing left, which simply means such person has attained the peak of his or her career. So after the 8 years, it should be the, except such person would like to take a transfer outside the confine of the house. I don't know, it's something we can still look at and agree, but it's a very tricky one. So the one suggesting that the directors should enjoy the same, I don't think that is acceptable. A director is a director. So when you attain the level of PS, fine, it's understandable. But if you are not saying the privilege enjoyed by the PS will be applicable to those on director, okay, that well, I think it's going to be a difficult one. So there's nothing differentiating between the director and the, so we should look at that recommendation and make a director, let director be a director. So when you are within director cadre, as it also says, anybody within director cadre can be appointed to be a PS or clerk or anything. That is just, at least it happens in mainstream, where level 15 officers have been appointed as permanent secretary. So that is what we are trying to. I think all in all, we should not lose sight that the control of the civil service should be under the clerk. Under the clerk, so we must not, I think you read something subject to Lagos State about the disciplinary.
It's not part of our recommendation. It's not part of our recommendation, sir. Just observation. It's under observation, sir.
Okay, recommend. Okay,
it's not part of recommendation.
Shall cease to order office. So they should be answerable to the clerk. The clerk is the head of administration in the House of Assembly. So
yes, sir.
They should be answerable to the clerk.
Yes, sir.
And the clerk should also enjoy the power to sanction where the need arises.
Yes.
So you should look at that around that angle. And the regulation, you are suggesting that the commission should also can come up with regulation. Such regulation must be subjected to
yes, sir.
Lagos State regulation approval law.
Yeah,
so when they come up with the regulation, they will always come back to seek approval. Yeah. I think with that amendment,
yes,
we
sir.
are good.
Yes, sir.
So, who is adopting? Honorable Tomo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With the amendment, I want to move that the report as presented by the chairman of the 7-man ad hoc committee be adopted as the resolution of the
recommendation.
The recommendation of the chairman of the committee be adopted as the resolution of the House. I so move.
Honorable Nurenu.
I second the motion as moved.
All in favor say aye. Those against nay, the ayes have it. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues, with considerations and deliberations in respect of the report concluded, I wish to move that the House reverts to plenary. I so move.
Honorable Akonde.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I second the motion as moved.
All in favor say aye. Those against nay, the ayes have it. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, at the Committee of the Whole, the House took the presentation of reports of the 7-man ad hoc committee on the Lagos State House of Assembly Legislative Service Commission Amendment Bill presented by the chairman, Honorable Naim Adams from Eti-Osa. The report was deliberated upon and the recommendations were considered. Amendments were proposed to some of the recommendations, and at the end of the deliberation, the recommendations of the committee were adopted as resolution of the House subject to the amendment made thereto. The House thereafter reverts to plenary. Mr. Speaker, I wish to say that that is what transpired at the committee of the whole. Thank you.
Honorable Makinde.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to affirm that was the true recap of what transpired at the committee of the whole.
Honorable Tobo.
I rise to second the affirmation, sir.
All in favor say aye. Those against nay, the ayes have it. Majority Leader.
Distinguished colleagues, we have come to the end of the deliberation for today's plenary, and I have the approval of Mr. Speaker to move that the House adjourns till Monday, the 14th day of September at 12 noon. I so move.
Honorable Akande.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I second the motion as moved.
All in favor say aye. Those against nay, the ayes have it. There will be a short meeting immediately after plenary. This House stands adjourned till Monday, 14 September 2020 at 12 noon prompt. I rise.